I thought I'd bring you along as I troubleshoot this old school HP XW4600 workstation. This computer came out about 2009 and was really hot stuff when it came out. It's a high-end machine. It's got a dual-core processor and 4 gigabytes of RAM. But it's so old school, I've got to use a DVI cable to hook it up to my monitor, and I'm going to use a PS2 mouse. So what killed this machine will surprise you. Alright, let me get everything plugged in. This will be a little loosey-goosey since I've got one hand with the camera. Get my DVI plugged in. It may or may not want to give me a video signal if I don't have it plugged into the primary DVI. We'll see if this is the right one. The next thing I'm going to hook up is a PS2 mouse, because these older machines tend to like PS2 mice better. I keep one laying around, several of these PS2 mice, just in case that's the case. And I'll go ahead and go with just a USB keyboard. And then we'll try to give this thing some power and see what happens, if anything. So where is that power cord? Oh, the fan spun up when I plugged it in. However, no sign of life whatsoever when I hit the power button. So let's open it up and give it a visual inspection. It's super easy to get the side case off this computer. First, you just make sure you have no screws, and then you grab this handle right here and work it back. Now, if you look in here, I've already had it open and pulled off all the power connectors, because the first thing I want to do is test this power supply since it's not powering up. So I've got my little basic power supply tester. These are like $20, $25. I've done a video on these. And what I need to hook up to it is my P1 24-pin connector. And right here, this motherboard takes a 4-pin auxiliary power connector. Let me get those hooked up and then we'll test the power supply. I've got the 24-pin P1 connector plugged in. I've got the 4-pin auxiliary power connector that this motherboard uses plugged in. And I have the power supply plugged into the wall on the back of the computer. For this power supply tester to work, I just have to push down the button and it should tell me what the voltages are. Nothing. This, my friends, is a dead power supply. So I just grabbed a spare older Antec power supply I have. This is a 450 watt. Let me hook up the power supply tester to it real quick to show you what we should have gotten. So hang on. So in the case of this power supply, I've got the 24-pin connected, and this power supply comes with the 8-pin, or more specifically, 2 4-pin auxiliary power connectors, and I'm going to hook these both up to the power supply here. Hopefully, I'm going to do this and give you some riveting video of me doing that. I'm going to turn on the power supply. It's got a 0-1 switch here on the back, and hold the button down. And that's what we should be getting. We should be getting something. The voltages are reasonable. They're a little low, but they're fine. Now, let's hook this power supply up to this computer and see if we can at least get a power on self-test. So when I'm trying to do a smoke test on a computer many times, I want as few components hooked up to the motherboard as possible. So you see, to tell you how old school this computer is, I have disconnected the floppy data cable. Let me disconnect the hard drives and the DVD drive here. But while I was doing this and doing a visual inspection, do you see down here on this card there's some sort of discoloration? Let me pop this card out. And if I look on the back of the computer, this is a FireWire card. And I'm not sure, but we may have found our smoking gun. Looks like there might be something wrong with this FireWire card. So, looks like when this card died, it took out the power supply. But let's find out if it took out the motherboard and video card too. But that is pretty dramatic. Alright, the first time I booted this computer up, I actually got 5 long beeps. And I looked that up online and discovered that was bad memory before the video is initialized. So I took all the memory sticks out except for one, reseated that one, and I was successful. Then I started getting this fun. One long shrieking beep. There it is again, but this time I think it's going to beep at me and give me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 beeps, excuse me. 6 beeps is video card. So let me swap in another video card. All right, I just popped in a low-end video card to replace it here. I've got a power good light on the motherboard. I'm going to energize and turn the computer on, and we will see if we get a power on self-test successful. And I do see it on the screen over there. I'm going to go ahead and put the other 3 memory sticks back in and see if we can get a post with all the memory in it in this new video card. All right, somebody was probably screaming at the monitor. The video card is not dead. I forgot to hook in the 6-pin auxiliary power to the video card. It does indeed power on self-test, and the video card works much better if it has enough electricity to run. It's plugged in. Hit the power here, and we'll see if we get a power on self-test successful with all 4 memory sticks and a powered up video card. And let's see if we get anything on the screen. There it is, power on self-test successful. Isn't that wonderful? Since this is an old school DVI, I have no way to capture the video out of this computer. Now I'm going to press F10 to go into setup, and we can take a quick look at the settings on this machine. You gotta love how slow these BIOSes are, but isn't it wonderful to see it working? I'm in the BIOS, I gotta pick English, and if I go to system information, let's see what we can see here. We can see it is indeed an HP XW4600 workstation with an Intel Core 2 Duo E8500 for those of you keeping track at home. It does see all of my memory. I've got all 4 gigabytes of RAM on this high-end 2009 machine. Let's boot it up to Parted Magic, because the next thing I want to check is to see if these old hard drives are healthy. All right, I'm going to boot it up again and choose F9 for one-time boot menu, and the BIOS is doing its thing, and then I am going to pick, oh, that's a good sign. We see both hard drives there. I'm going to pick CD-ROM. And I'm going to boot Parted Magic in the 64-bit mode and run from RAM. I'll bring you back when I get to disk health. And it's booting. Continuing with my low-tech method of capturing DVI video, I am in Parted Magic and I am going to launch disk health. Here are the 2 hard drives of this HP workstation. Let me open up the first hard drive, and we're going to look at the health of the drive. Now, I would have expected that some of the attributes would have been in the red, so let's go look at the attributes and look at the most important ones. Very interestingly, it only has 71 power cycles. Power on time, however, is 5,478 hours. I would have expected something much higher, but let's look at the important items. Reported uncorrectable sectors, 0. Reallocated sectors, 0. That's wonderful. Let's look at the second hard drive. Once again, nothing is showing in red. Same start-stop count, same number of hours, reported uncorrected 0, reallocated sector count 0. So the next thing I'd want to do on these drives is to perform a short self-test just to get an idea if the drive is working. Oh, and I can hear that beast spinning up and stepping the heads. And while that one's going, let's go back to the other one. Come on, come back up. Go to self-tests and execute a short self-test on this one as well. Now you can hear them both spinning and churning away, and that's a good sign. I will bring you back when these tests complete. I couldn't resist recording the sound of these hard drives spinning up. So there's my lapel mic. Let me go here and start the self-tests again. You hear those tanks going for it? Fun. Both hard drives tested, the short test that is, successful, completed without errors, and the smart parameters of these drives look amazingly good. I never would have expected a 13-year-old computer to have only 5,400 hours on the hard drives. But let's boot into the operating system and see if we boot up. So let me quit Parted Magic here and see if we boot into Windows. We got the BIOS screen. It's asking me which operating system I want to boot into, which settings. I'm not sure why they have a dual boot menu on this machine. Like I said, I was just trying to get it to boot up. Let's just boot with the default option. Oh, look at that Windows XP goodness. Isn't that wonderbar? Boy, this brings back memories to the nerd. But I'm glad I was able to resurrect this old system with some really expensive software on it that is bound to the serial number of the motherboard. So process technology may be able to get some more life out of this machine. That's going to do it for me here. I hope you enjoyed me going through this troubleshooting with a few detours. Thanks a lot. Take care.